Back to school anxiety can make the start of a new school year difficult for children and stressful for parents and teachers. The instinct is often to make the worry disappear as quickly as possible. But resilience is not built by removing every uncomfortable feeling. It develops when children can face manageable challenges with enough support, predictability, and agency to stay engaged. So the goal is not to toughen children up, and it is not to rescue them from every challenge. A more useful goal is this: make the next step manageable. Research on resilience consistently points to the importance of supportive relationships, practical skills, and environments that help children adapt. Here are 7 ways to apply that idea during the return to school. First, restore predictable routines. Transitions become harder when almost everything changes at once. In the days before school, move sleep, waking, meals, morning preparation, and screen use gradually toward the school day pattern. Predictability does not remove every worry, but it reduces avoidable uncertainty and gives the child more mental space for the parts of school that really are new. Second, identify the specific worry. I do not want to go to school can mean many different things: separation from a parent, a new teacher, getting lost, social uncertainty, academic pressure, bullying, sensory overload, or fear of making mistakes. Before reassuring, ask a concrete question. What part of going back feels hardest right now? The answer changes the support that makes sense. Third, make the unknown more familiar. If possible, preview the route to school, transportation, the classroom, the timetable, or the sequence of the first morning. A short visit, a map, a written plan, or simply talking through what will happen can reduce uncertainty. This is not about guaranteeing that nothing difficult will occur. It is about helping the child know where to begin. Fourth, break the transition into smaller steps. Resilience does not require a child to handle the full challenge immediately. A child who is overwhelmed by the whole school day may still be able to prepare the backpack, walk to the entrance, greet a familiar adult, or complete the first classroom routine. Shrink the task until participation becomes possible. Then build gradually from there. Fifth, support without taking over. At one extreme, adults can minimize the difficulty. You just have to deal with it. At the other, we can solve so much that the child has no meaningful role left. Support works best when it preserves agency. You might say, I can see this feels difficult. What is one part you can do yourself, and where would some help make the next step possible? Small choices can help. Let the child choose the order of morning tasks. Decide which coping strategy to use. Select a comfort object if appropriate, or identify which adult at school they would approach if they need help. Agency is not the same as leaving a child alone with the problem. It means the child remains an active participant in the solution. Sixth, identify dependable adults. Children do not build resilience in isolation. A supportive relationship can help a child regulate distress, interpret a difficult situation, and remain engaged in problem solving. Make the support network concrete. Who is the classroom teacher? Is there a familiar staff member? Who can the child approach at lunch or during a difficult transition? Knowing that support exists is useful. Knowing exactly how to access it is better. Seventh, plan for recovery. The first days of school can demand more attention, self-control, social effort, and emotional regulation than children have been using during the break. Recovery is part of adaptation. Protect adequate sleep, regular meals, movement, some unstructured time, and connection with supportive adults. A child who needs more recovery after school is not necessarily failing to cope. They may simply be using a great deal of capacity during the day. For educators, the same principles apply at classroom level. Clear routines, visible expectations, predictable transitions, and a known source of help reduce unnecessary uncertainty. This does not mean lowering every demand. It means making the environment understandable enough that students can use their capacities. A well-structured classroom can be a protective factor, especially during periods of transition. For parents, do not measure success by whether anxiety disappears immediately. A better question is whether the child can participate, recover, and use support. Many children experience worries during transitions, and these often reduce as routines become familiar. The presence of some anxiety does not automatically mean that the transition is going badly. There is an important boundary here. Not every stressful experience builds resilience. Challenge becomes useful only when it remains manageable. If fear is persistent or extreme, if school attendance is repeatedly disrupted, if distress is escalating, or if the child is unable to function in ordinary settings, the appropriate next step may be professional assessment rather than simply more exposure to the difficulty. That gives us a more accurate way to think about back to school resilience. Understand the difficulty, adjust the conditions, strengthen participation. The goal is not to remove every challenge, and it is not to demand that children cope alone. It is to create the conditions in which they can take the next meaningful step. To recap, restore predictable routines. Identify the specific worry. Make the unknown more familiar. Break the transition into smaller steps. Support without taking over. And preserve agency. Identify dependable adults. And plan for recovery after demanding days. These are not guarantees, and they are not substitutes for individualized support when a child needs it. They are practical ways to make adaptation more possible. I have also prepared a simple back-to-school resilience checklist that turns these 7 ideas into a one-page prompt for parents and educators. You can use it to identify the difficulty, the available supports, and the next manageable step. The link is in the description. If you want evidence-informed resilience guidance without motivational slogans or unrealistic promises, subscribe to Resilience in Practice. Resilience is not something children should be expected to demonstrate alone. It is something we can help build through skills, relationships, and supportive environments.